News of the Russian leader Vladimir Putin not attending next month's 15th BRICS Summit in South Africa has received mixed reaction. Some have condemned the South African government, while the EFF has described the current administration as, quote-unquote, spineless by not being firm on its foreign policy. The Foreign Minister of Russia, Sergei Lavrov, will instead attend in Putin's place following a mutual agreement. At least that's what Pretoria said in a statement yesterday. Well, at the center of the controversy is Putin's arrest warrant issued by the International Criminal Court for alleged war crimes that have allegedly been committed in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Joining us now for a discussion is Obed Bapela. He's the Deputy Chairperson of the ANC's Subcommittee on International Relations. Mr. Bapela, thank you very much for your time. Let's begin with how the ANC views this particular decision by the Russian president to not attend in person the BRICS Summit. Is this a victory for the rule of law in South Africa?
Good morning, Toli, and to the viewers of Newzroom Afrika. Yes, obviously, we are disappointed that Putin is no longer coming, and I think there's a voice in South Africa that had expected him to be here. But at the same time, relieved because we have this conundrum of our own law and nothing else, and no one can be blamed on it, which is the Rome Statutes. In the manner in which we have domesticated it, it means we had an obligation to arrest. Whether the arrest was possible, definitely it was not possible to arrest Putin, a sitting president of another country. And then, as you know, they did say that anyone who arrests Putin declares war on Russia, and we didn't want to put South Africa into a war situation. And we didn't want also to see an episode that is similar to Omar al-Bashir of Sudan in 2019.
Yeah.
And therefore we had 2016. Therefore we were just in that situation, and it's our law, and that is why we had the president had to go through President Putin, Ramaphosa, saying, "I have invited you, and therefore, but this is the situation that I find myself in, and it's my law, in that law that South Africa domesticated, the Rome Statutes." That is why immediately after the BRICS, the processes of amending the Rome Statutes, so that future hostings of events in South Africa can then go without any hindrance. But where we have to arrest a person, we'll still arrest. Where we say our national interests are at stake, we will not be arresting, but there will be no law that obligates us at that particular point in time, because we'll have then covered our back as a result of that. That is not being spineless, because we did not withdraw the invitation to Putin. We invited him, and the invitation is still standing, but then he has now since taken a decision that he will join virtually and not put us in a situation based on our law on how we have domesticated the Rome Statutes.
Well, Mr. Bapela, I think just to be clear, it's a contradiction in terms, what you have said, because the invitation cannot still stand, whilst at the same time, behind closed doors, negotiations were being led by the Deputy President Paul Mashatile to try and persuade the Russian leader to not come. So I think that must be clear. So I think here what you are stating quite clearly is that this is a victory for the rule of law in South Africa. Let's then push ahead.
Look, I mean, the talks were as frank. It was not just one line that don't come. We put in scenarios. We looked at the eventualities. We looked at possibilities. We looked at our own situation. And it was a plethora of those particular ideas and discussions.
Yeah.
And the ANC is known for a document called the Strategy and Tactics. You apply tactics in any situation that confronts you. And this time around, tactics were applied. The strategy is still the same. We are BRICS members. Russia will be represented by their foreign minister. Russia will be here. Putin will be addressing the meeting of the BRICS. South Africa remains in the BRICS bloc countries.
Yeah.
Yes, all other markets are important in the world. EU and
Mr.
UK
Bapela.
put together, the number one investors in here.
Mr.
And
Bapela,
China has overtaken the US, and now China is number 2. Yes, Tony.
You are taking away my time. You're taking away my time. Yes, you and I are smiling because I suppose it is a sigh of relief, finally, for South Africa that there is this
breakthrough. Well, I did use the word relief, definitely, yes, I think.
So let's push ahead then, because one of the key questions that we've got to talk about is South Africa's relationship with Russia. Given this latest decision, is that likely to change dramatically in the near future, given the statement that was made by the EFF, and that is that the BRICS formation, and I quote now, will always be undermined by a cowardly government in South Africa? Is that where things are? Do you think that relationship is colored perhaps for the foreseeable future?
Not at all. The Russians are here now, led by Andrei Klimov, in a meeting of the BRICS political parties dialogue. Next week, the president is attending the Russia-Africa meeting that is taking place in St. Petersburg. The ANC delegation will be led by the Deputy Secretary General. I'll be there because I belong to the body that we are launching in October, called the Anti-Colonialism Forum of Political Parties, led by the United Russia Party. We'll be there. The relationships are going to go stronger. We'll be in Russia next week, and as ANC, we'll also be in Russia in October to go and launch that international organization of progressive and parties in the left, and therefore we'll champion the cause of the New World Order together with Russia and BRICS partner countries, and therefore nothing changes. There's nothing cowardly here. There's nothing spineless here. We have just applied the strategy and tactics based on the law that I say we are going to be amending through Parliament, and then definitely we'll be hosting events into the future without any fear of us having to break the law.
All right. Quick questions. I've got 2 questions remaining for you, depending on how quick you answer this one. How do you think the United States sees this latest decision by President Putin to pull out of the BRICS Summit, given their skepticism about South Africa's pronounced non-aligned stance?
Well, the U.S. Remains skeptical, even if Putin is not going to come. They have their own agenda. We cannot control that agenda. And then, however, we remain steadfast that the New World Order is on the rise and South Africa is part of it.
Then the final question, Mr. Bapela. This is yet another moment for the ANC-led government to take a proper and decisive step as to what it is that you're going to do about your membership of the ICC. Are you standing, or in other words, are you remaining a member of the ICC? Are you pulling out? If you are not pulling out, what exactly is it that you are going to do with the domestication element of this Rome Statute?
The conference of the ANC last year rescinded the decision to pull out. We'll respect the conference decision. We'll stay in the ICC. We're going to be pushing reform and transformation agenda in it in the next 5 years. And then only then when we fail, we'll then be determined back to the ANC conference to say we tried, we are failing. That is why we are now looking at the Rome Statutes as implemented in South Africa or domesticated. So we'll be amending the domestication so that we free ourselves from certain obligations, like all other countries that have done so. South Africa will then follow the route so that we can host any meeting of any leaders who might be on the warrant or wanted list. But if we don't have an obligation clause, then we will then indicate at that time that these people are welcome to come to South Africa.
Obed Bapela, let me thank you very much for your time speaking to us in his capacity as Deputy Chair of the ANC's Subcommittee on International Relations. That takes us closer to